Personal Finance Practice Problem using Excel. Financial Statement and Budget Part 1 Balance Sheet. Prepare to get financially fit by practicing personal finance. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. If you have access to the Excel worksheet, would like to follow along, note that we're down here in the Practice tab as opposed to the Example tab. The Example tab, in essence, being an answer key. Information on the left-hand side, I'm going to populate that into the blue area on the right-hand side, putting together our financial statements, balance sheet, and income statement, in essence, on more of a cash basis system. Then taking a look at our budget versus actual calculation. Our data for the financial data will be up top. This will be the data for the period that we imagine has already passed. Down below will be the budgeted information when we do the budget versus actual type of report we will be putting together. But first, we're focusing in on the balance sheet. And as we go into the balance sheet, let's first go through our data and just color code it as we have done in the past. Assets being green, liabilities orange, and then the equity and the income statement some format of blue. So the checking account, that's clearly going to be a balance sheet account. That's an asset. We're going to make that green. I'm going to right click, make it green. The emergency fund, this is going to be another green account that we're going to have up top because it's going to be another liquid type of account we have in the case of an emergency. The car, I'm going to make that green as well. It's a different asset in that it's not a liquid asset, but it's still going to be an asset up top. So we're going to make that green. A computer, also going to be an asset. Right click, going to make that our green item. The student loan, this now being a liability, the balance of the loan, going to make that orange. Right clicking on it, hitting the bucket up top and make that one this orange color. We got our credit card balance, so we're going to make that orange. That's how much we owe on the credit card. Right clicking, orangifying it. And then we've got the monthly income. Now we're down to basically our income statement accounts and our net monthly income. So I'm going to say those are on the income statement. I'm going to make them some kind of blue. Right clicking, I'm going to hit the bucket up top and make it like a lighter, but not too light, like that type of blue right there. And then the monthly savings, this is going to be something that will be a cash outflow. So when we're thinking about our budget for the outflow, it's kind of like an expense in that it's an outflow. Clearly, it would be coming out of our cash for the checking account, going back into, in essence, our savings account. Same with this other savings here. So I'm going to make them equivalent to like an expense type account, but which is going to be this light blue up top. But note that that again, that's kind of a deviation from the accrual basis when you're thinking about a cash basis versus the income statement on basically an accrual basis. We got the rent. That's going to be a type of expense. Electricity, these are all expenses, so that's basically in order here. The water will be a type of expense. Cable, food, gas maintenance, credit card payments. That's another one, which is I'm going to make these all blue. I'll right click and make those blue. The credit card payments are going to be something that you can think of as an expense portion if we were using an accrual basis, meaning it would have basically a portion that would be interest versus principal. But from a cash flow basis, to think about our cash flow, we'll keep it in the cash outflow category. Car insurance, that's another one where you might have a prepayment situation, which is another common accrual problem. But we're going to expense it on the cash flow basis here. And then we have shopping expenses, concerts that we're going to, and movies that we're going to, all going to be personal expenses, making those blue. So it's nice and in order here. Now we can just plug this into our financial statements, building up. I'm going to go a little bit faster because we've seen these in the past. And I'm going to color code it as we've seen it in the past. So it's going to be a gaudy looking financial statement, but it's going to be nice. Here we're going to say assets. Assets don't have 3 S's in it. Well, they do, but not like next to each other. Anyways, I'm gonna select these ones. I'm gonna make that dark green. Right clicking on it. We're gonna go to the bucket up top, and we're gonna say that it's gonna be the dark green. And then I'm also gonna make the lettering the white, green and white, so it stands out a bit. Then we've got the liquid assets, which is a subcategory, liquid assets. So I'm gonna put a colon, and I'm gonna put the actual accounts in under the liquid assets, which will include, I'm gonna say equals the checking account and the emergency savings fund, which will be this one. Note that you can start working with Excel and copy these things down. So I deleted that one so that I can show you that even though we're picking up actual words and not numbers, I can put my cursor on it, put my cursor on the fill handle and drag it down. It will pull in the relative cell reference and that kind of stuff can make things a lot faster. Let's do the same thing over here with the numbers. I'm going to put this into the inner column because this is a subcategory indicated by the colon and the inner column of this equaling the 1,700. I'm going to go ahead and autofill that down, and it will then pick up the 3009 in a similar fashion as with the wording. Putting our cursor on the fill handle, left-clicking, dragging down. There it is, picking up that 3009. Let's indent this one here, selecting these two tabs to indicate once again it's a subcategory. Home tab, alignment, indent. Looks so much nicer. That's so much. Okay, so total liquid assets, the subtotal then. Let's indent that 2 times. Home tab, alignment, indent, indent. And then we're going to pull this into the outer column now using our trusty sum function equals the SUM. Shift 9. I'm going to do it all with the keyboard. Up arrow, left arrow, holding down shift, up again. There's the formula. Move this thingy down so you can see it. There's the formula and enter. Let's put an underline under the 3009. Home tab, font group, and underline. There it is. Let's make this whole thing like the green here. I'm going to make this whole thing like this darker, but not too dark green. Like that one. That's the current asset green we've been using. And then we've got, I'm going to call this category the household assets. And we're going to say possessions. So, and this is kind of like property, plant, and equipment. So these are the things that you have. Note that if you're working with software that's pulling in the ending balance from financial statements, you'll be able to pull in oftentimes the checking account in the emergency. But the household goods, those are the ones that take more work on your side, meaning you're going to have to value what you think the household goods are worth, and then you're going to have to depreciate them over time to properly be reporting your book. So it's really your decision as to how much of the household goods you want on there. Typically, you want kind of the home on there to get an idea of the home, although, again, you don't want to obsess even about the home on the value of the home, hopefully, given the fact that you might just be simply living in it. And so it shouldn't have much impact, really, although it might be kind of a part of your retirement planning and whatnot. But the household goods, you want to decide, how you want to, what your purpose is for the financials and whether or not you need and how many of the household goods you might need to include. So the car, pretty big item, so you might put the car on there. So it all will clearly go down in value unless you got like a classic or something like that, right? The car is going to go down in value, so you'd have to depreciate it over time generally. So that's going to be the 4008. You'd have to get the appraisal on it. Your computer also is here, and that has a value to it. You could sell it if you needed to, but it's probably going to go down in value. And let's face it, you're probably never going to sell it unless you're like good at computer, like selling stuff with the computer stuff, because it'll just get old and worthless. And so whatever. So we got the home tab, we got the alignment, indent. Let's go and underline here, font group and underline. And this is going to be the total. We'll call it the total household assets and possessions tab, and do the trusty sum function equals the SUM, sum, shift 9, up arrow, left arrow, holding down shift, up again, adding up those two numbers, and enter. Let's indent this 2 times. Home tab, alignment, indent, indent, 2 times. Now let's make this a different green, make this a lighter green. Home tab, font group, bucket, lighter green. Let's make it like, we can make it like that green. That's good. Okay, and then we're going to have the total assets. So that'll be the total assets, which we're going to put in the outer column. Let's do an underline in this outer column. Home tab, font group, underline. Now we're only adding up the outer column now. I'm not going to be jumping from column to column when I'm doing my calculations here. That's general practice for forms. And once your forms get longer, knowing that makes your eyes less likely to roll over when you look at forms. Also makes it easier for you to make forms so that when you present them to other people, their eyes are less likely to roll over in boredom, so, and not understanding and complaining. So then we can add these things up. There's too many numbers and I don't understand how they're formatted, right? You want to avoid that so that you can get to the point. So we got the sum of the outer column here. There we have it, enter. And then we're going to make this the dark blue or green by going to the Home tab, Fonts group, Bucket, and then we'll go to the dark green, this one, and then I'll make it white too for the contrast, green and white. We could double underline that one because that's one of the bottom line numbers when you think about the classical double entry accounting system of assets equal liabilities plus equity, although here we're kind of focusing in on like the net asset calculation. So I guess I won't underline it. I won't double underline it. Then we got liabilities. Liabilities. And then let's make that the darker orange. Home tab, Fonts group, drop down on the bucket, the dark orange and white. And then we'll make the lettering white for the contrast. So it stands out, even though it's a dark orange, white on the dark background. So we could see it. And this is going to be the current liabilities, colon, to indicate that there's a subcategory. And then we'll just list out those current liabilities. There's only one here. I'm going to pick the student loan because I'm going to say, actually, the current liabilities is going to be the credit card balance. It looks like they're kind of reversed here. Credit card balance would be the current liability, that then, which is due within a year, which is going to be that $850. Let's indent that. Now, you could just put this directly in the outer column because that's all I have in this category. And if I make a total, it'll be redundant. But I want to make the totals just to show you how the full format would be if you had multiple current liabilities here. So I'm going to make the total, which is going to be the total current liabilities. Put that in the outer column. We don't even need a sum function because it's just the same number here. We totaled up that one number. Home tab, Fonts group, underline. That seems redundant. Yeah, it is, because you could just put this one in the outer column. That's what a lot of people do if someone asks you that. But then if you want the same formatting of this kind of subgrouping thing, then we'll do this kind of subgrouping. So then we're going to go to the Home tab, alignment, indent two times, and then we'll make this another kind of orange. Right-clicking on it, going to the bucket, making it some kind of orange. Let's make it that lighter. That one right there. That's the one. That's the one I want. And then we'll have the long-term liabilities, colon, and let's pick up the credit card or the student loan this time. Student loans, we're going to say is long-term. Now, remember, when you pick up the long-term, these are two items as well that you could pick up kind of like from your financial institution if you were using like financial software and connected to your financial institution. The loan would probably be broken out, possibly some loans and more of a long-term or separate category. But you'd have to determine then how much of the loan is due within the next year if you want to compare it to the liquid assets to consider your liquidity. So that's going to be then, we'll say this is going to be the total long-term liabilities, and that's going to be equal to the 7,002. Let's put an underline under the 7.2 by going to the Home tab, Fonts group, and underline. And let's indent these ones by selecting these items and go to the alignment and indent. And then indent here again, alignment and indent. And then we'll make this one another kind of orange, a lighter orange, right-clicking on it, bucket. Let's make it like a lighter orange, like that one. Let's do this one. So there we have it. And then this is going to be the total liabilities, which is, I'm just going to sum up the outer column here. I'm only working in one column at a time. So I'm looking at the 850 and the 7,002 equals the SUM, shift 9, up arrow, holding down shift, up, up, up. But there's blank cells in there. What about the blank cells? Is that a problem? Not a problem. Not a problem. We could just sum the whole thing up even though there's blank cells. There it is. I'm going to put an underline here. Fonts group, underline. And that's our total liabilities. Let's make that dark orange. Right-clicking on it. Bucket. And then we'll make that the dark orange. And then we got to make it white because the dark orange doesn't have the contrast with the black lettering. So we got to make it white on the lettering. And then we're going to have the net worth, which is going to be the assets minus the liabilities. So this will be equal to the dark green assets, the 11,350 minus the 8,050. Let's make that a blue because that's kind of our equity or net worth calculation. So there we'll make that our blue. And that's in essence the bottom line number. We can put an underline here, maybe font group underline. And so there we have it. So note that obviously if you think about the accounting equation, the liabilities and equity adds up to the 11,350, which are the assets, which is your accounting equation, or assets minus liability equals equity or net worth. Remember that as we're constructing this and just building this from the ending balances, then we're kind of getting to the bottom line of the net worth. If you were to do the accounting on it, like building your financial statements from scratch, which gives you a lot more security over your transactions, then you would be able to determine your difference between the prior period equity or net worth and the current period by having the income statement. And that'll give you that double entry accounting system, which gives you that double assurity for it. If you're just compiling your financial statements and then compiling the income statement, then you don't have that double entry accounting system to really lock in that everything's tying together. It doesn't give you that internal control, as they call it, that security, that double check that everything's working out. But it's a trade-off in terms of your time versus reward, what's going to be best for your personal financial system. So the next step, like if we were to do this with like accounting software, just note it would create the balance sheet and force you to basically be in balance, and would record the transaction of the activity, because that's what you're entering in terms of the income statement. But if you're using software or you're just putting it from scratch together from your statements, then the financial data you could pull directly from the financial institution statements or through software as of the ending date instead of the activity. And then you'd have to put together your other stuff like your car and your computer and your home, which aren't financial assets. And therefore you have to, if you want, depending on what you want to do with those, put those on the books and appraise them in some way, possibly depreciate them. And then you're going to have to figure out how to do your income statement to the degree that you need to do it, so that you can get the added information of the detail, your performance information, because the performance information, the income statement, is the thing you usually take action on or plan to the future on, because that performance statement is what is your performance that you can basically improve on in the future, so that you can get to the next point in time, next month, and hopefully have a bigger, or whatever you're shooting for net worth at that point.